the MVP Coffee Party. Second time in 1 week, and welcome to the show. So I was late, sorry about that, half an hour because of lots of configuration. And I have to say hello, Mia, hello, Raphael. And now the build is over, and that we want to talk about the build features. We do not have to talk during the build or before the build has begun.
There are so much new build features. So we talked a last podcast about it with Mia. And so we invited Mia a second time in 1 week. So welcome, Mia. Please introduce you a little bit for the attendees. They don't hear the first part of the podcast.
Okay. So I'm Mia. That I'm also a Microsoft MVP for 3 years as an AI category 1. So mostly my job was doing like computer vision, text analysis, and some machine learning projects. And I think it's quite interesting to me, like to seeing like from remotely watching the builds. So I think the good thing is you don't have to run through different sessions. You're just sitting there, and then you could also even watch the sessions in between. So sometimes you have the overlap one, but one ends earlier. So you also could watch another one in the meantime. So I think it's quite good though.
And it was a great thing. And last year we had 6,000 attendees, and now we have 230,000 attendees, participants watching the show. 230,000. So Raphael, now you know next year you will have a build, and that's the same for Ignite. All these sessions.
I know.
Not. Maybe you can come, but the main part is that we'll all record and all sessions are being live.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
230,000. You have to. That's 30,000 more, and you have to.
That's too much for one live event. Sorry. Yeah. That's too much for one live event and too much for a Teams meeting. And so I saw some of the Microsoft employees started to make sessions on Twitch. The Windows Dev team and the Windows Insider team switched to Twitch and make and publish and stream, for example, their sessions on Twitch. I heard a very great session about combining Teams development and GitHub, and push GitHub and use GitHub. And that's for me, yes, I'm using GitHub, but I'm only I'm a beginner. I'm absolutely beginner. But
so
it's a very great session. Yeah,
my week was the same. I had to prepare completely OBS. So OBS, I will talk to you a little bit later, but you can have a lot of this stuff, but you have to learn. I'm talking about NDI, and therefore we will see when it comes in and in Teams. But the main setup is that it comes from the gamer. The gamer mostly have one big machine, but this machine they want to have exactly only running this game, that it's all those quick and so on. And then they have a small thing called OBS on this machine that only takes a screen, and all other parts they're doing like NDI, and put all these streams together on another machine to stream this stuff. Okay. So on this machine, you can have it. Yes. The first thing I had prepared with this camera, I have an NDI camera in there. That's correct. That's good. But it has a delay of, let's say, a tenth of seconds. You see that if you have more than one camera, then it's perfectly. I have 4 cameras here in the system. So that was a little bit tricky to establish all this stuff. And I do not make the sound thing. I only have the camera. But you see, if you work the ellipse or make this one, you see it twice. Then it's completely. But that reduces stuff. And NDI was all announced. It was one of the announcements. I think during before the build, it will come in 1 month. That you also have in Teams NDI features. I think that is good stuff, but you have to know, sometimes the people at Microsoft say, okay, we want to implement that and do it quickly and not on the correct way. So think about, with NDI, you can have different sources. And if you have a source for Mia, your talk, your window as a source, and I take Raphael also as a source in Teams and take mine also as a source, it's 3 sources, and put them together and make several things and put them in the output channel. Yeah. So that could be very interesting, but that's not so easy because it's NDI and we have the different sources and they have to split off. But we will see how they do that. The thing is, then you can make, because we're now talking about Teams. That is Teams. Last session we have done with this one, and I called it then, why do we do that? Oops, I don't see that. But if you can have it on a push button and split all this stuff, then it's entertainment, it's a show.
Yeah.
But you have to know, it's not very easy. First, you have to make a script. When we want to do it, we can announce, although Mia was the second time, and I will not have a date, but we will search for that. We will have Mia at the third time, but with other women around the planet. And that means if you do that, you have to be an absolutely agenda. You have to be something prepared and not only a team sharing, because that's a different. Teams is not the right one. There are other parts of streaming software, and we have to look what is the best one. Teams is there. We know Teams. We can have that one. But for the future, we will see it could be another thing. Let's work.
Yeah.
So,
and so we have a lot of news, like Teams will be support NDI, dear Hans.
Yeah, that's great.
So in the future, it will be easier to stream and use OBS and all of this. But before we start with talking about the announcements and a lot of news, one step back, Hans, you started to talk about how you deploy such a conference. And this is a great topic, I think. And I saw a lot of sessions. And you can watch it on YouTube. We will put the link for YouTube in the notice, in the speaker notes, and also for Channel 9 and all of this. And you see all of the Microsoft speaker, and also the community speaker think about their surrounding. So how they use, for example, special flowers or IKEA things in the background, or use customer backgrounds, or most of them, for example, are also using special papers and things in the background why they do this, for example. And all of them has a special guidance, for example, for this. What do you think? How is the surrounding and the wearing of the speaker, and sometimes children's running in the session?
I also saw one of the session, like when Scott had a develop session, also introduced about the new update from GitHub about the code space. So I remember the guy from GitHub that he's like kind of walking his dog, and then the next speaker also is working her dog. So it's kind of like they also put the pets in the session as well. It's really nice though.
Yeah, and sometimes we saw pictures from the background or from the setting of the speakers, and there are, for example, the children's with some sheets like "Go Dad, Go Dad,"
yeah,
and all of this. So, a build is more a family event today.
Yeah.
Or what do you think, Mia and Hans?
A bit. So it makes it fit. Yeah. Yeah. Think about that. Not all people are working from home in the past. Microsoft people are not well, our listener, and are not able, many of them are not able to visit the campus. And you have to see, a campus is a little town with 60,000 people are working on that.
Yeah.
That means it's a lot of people, and therefore they have an agreement with Boeing and other big companies in Seattle, and that makes it happen that all the people can come from Seattle and surrounding cities and going to Microsoft. So the people have their rooms, they are working from there. And during coronavirus, they have to work from home. So several people like Mark Cashman and all the other people, they know what they are doing and can work from home. But several people who are working normally at the campus, they still although the same problems. They make the wrong backgrounds. You see all the stuff. They don't know what's happened there. And that means, yes, they have to learn this stuff like we have too. So that's a different, therefore, it's a little bit of personal, but it's sometimes they do not know. There is very interesting to see, have the camera object and going out. And sometimes you see a little bit more, like from Scott or also from Satya. You have seen Satya is working in this room and all the presence in the background. So that's a little bit more personal, but that is a personal thing. They have to see, hey, it's always from the Köllner. Oh, why? The virus. The virus has implemented that, and they have to learn it too. And that means, yes, it's a little bit personal, but it's also professional.
Yeah.
That's right. And do you have a session or a speaker that's your favorite, for example? Do you have one, Mia or Hans? What do you think?
I think I quite like one. It's from like Student Zone and Image Cup. So for me, it's quite interesting to see like Microsoft has Image Cup to bring a lot of student teams as like a startup. They have like 3 different teams that go through the final stage, and then they did the presentation. And I found like almost 3 of them are doing some topics like how they could build application to help people. So I think it's like when we see hackathons topics actually bring more like inspiring ideas to us instead of like you want to make a lot of money. Usually like if from the idea is built from students, what they want to do is just for make the world better and help the people more. So actually when I see the ideas from the Image Cup, I feel like so inspiring. And then also see Sarah present the student zone. So they also, like before when they have the physical build event, they also have an area for like students that you could go there playing. So you are not only like as like above 20 years old, but also like some students, they are just 10, 15, or I don't know, 17. They just go there, build something interesting, and then to see technology to inspire them. So for me, it's quite interesting for me, like from student side. And another one that I joined is from a girl that she's from Seattle, and then she's doing like creative thinking session. So it's a non-technical section. It's just about like how you could practice more ideas. And then when you do like a stand-up or comedy, or even like you're doing presentation, you sometimes need some random idea bump to you. But this is not just random ideas. This is something that you could practice during the time. So in the session that we also did some practicing about how you could try to link this word to another word, etc. So for me, it's also interesting to see this. Yeah. And how about you, Hans?
I have seen here and there a little bit about bot development, a little bit of AI, and also Luis. And I think there are coming several new things, and that was very interesting to play with the stuff. And we still have to have it. There is the next conference coming this week. That's a community conference, and I think we will have. So the last time I have the numbers, it was 8,600. I think we will have more than 10,000 people around the planet. I have 5 sessions, 4 in a row. So that could be a little bit tricky, a little bit in German, a little bit in English. And we will have, although the first session and this one in a German session about the bot. I'm not a developer, but I know a little bit of the stuff, and now I can speed up a little bit things because there come absolutely new one. But you can tell, are there several new things in Azure Information and this stuff? Is there a lot of things that will come up and has a point now? A build will start and so many new things will come. Or is it also that are too many sessions? It was a lot of sessions.
There's a lot of sessions. Agree, though.
So sometimes I have to say, okay, during the morning, the people have the third session. So all Microsoft, or most of them, have 3 sessions in different time zones. So that means, yes, after the third one, you know what you are doing. So that's the same thing. Raphael knows that during Ignite, we want to say that they have to say for Ignite on tour, you should have more than 1 session, because after the second or after the third, you know what you are talking. You have a better time management and all these stuff. And therefore, I have seen a lot at the third one, and that was a good thing. Nothing wrong swung, take this stuff. That was the better one.
Yeah. But this is a concept we will see on the Microsoft 365 Virtual Summit 2 with the different time zones and all of this. But do you know if every session will be repeated 3 times?
Not all, but
not all.
Yeah.
For example, the keynote is not repeated. I don't think so.
The keynote is on demand. You can watch it now.
Or the thing from Scott Guthrie, the Q&A is not repeated. So answer the question 3 times. No. So, but yeah, these are difficult of a virtual conference. What you are talking about in the last minutes, it's how to find a solution for typical online conference, or issues or challenges for typical online conferences is time zones, one of the biggest one, and also the people have to look at their PC or phone for hours and hours sessions, so they get tired and you have to do more than in an offline conference, out of my perspective. And they try it on Build, and I hope they will optimize it on Ignite or on Inspire.
Okay, see that Microsoft is doing and what the community is doing.
Yeah.
The next conference, they have it. They do it with Sessionize. And in Sessionize, they have your time zone, and we want to ask, hey, when will you present? So they make a schedule. And this schedule they have organized very well from my perspective, because if you looking in the time zone here, that's okay. You got the time zone here. And if you're using and look for the sessions in Australia, you got their time zones. So it attempts where you are. And that's a good thing. We do not have to say, okay, what the time zone when we will have our next with the ladies a call. So we have to look, okay, that's Europe, India, and US. US, we have another part. It will work. We know that, but so that's not so easy, and people has to know. And for the MVP Summit, it was the first thing where we have not to fly over, and this was a little bit critical because you have no time zones, all in PST, and I have a watch there. Let me look for that. I have a watch there. It's an analog watch, and I don't think that you see this stuff.
Yeah, so you have
that's a time.
Yeah, like
yeah, okay.
I still have a time for Seattle. In Seattle, you have now 10 minutes to 11. You know that, but for the first thing, I only have to have a quick look, and I see it on the thing. Now I have to write an email, and I have an answer on the same day. If you know what time it's in there, you can have it in your mind, but if you are living in the European time zone, you do not have exactly and say, 9 hours, what is the best way? So therefore, we have all these PGI calls, that the calls during with the MVPs always in the evening.
Yeah. That's why.
We have 2 time zones with the PG calls in the evening and one for Germany in the night. Midnight, yeah. It's for Australian guys.
Yeah, they already wake it up.
Yeah. So I think the build was a good conference as an online conference, and I love that they sent the first 5,000 people badges and make, for example, a little bit fun in the sessions and also fun besides the sessions. And also we see, it's an overall session with Donna and Tess and other guys and women. They present Twitter and they present some special guys or make interviews and all of this. So this was for me a little bit a TV show.
Yeah,
a very long TV show, or it's a TV show. And so you have a TV show for the time, and then you are switching to the sessions and come back. And I'm missing a little bit the sponsor area. So that you have a look, okay, what for me it is very interesting in the sponsor area to have a look which partner created tools to support the Microsoft products, or to create tools and close the hole for some Microsoft features, for example. And this is what I'm a little bit missing. But overall, I like it. If we switch back to the news, and there's a book of news with all of the news included, we will put the link also in the speaker notes. And I have a look at the book of news, and the first 3.5 pages is Azure AI.
Wow.
3.5 pages from
from
4. 3.5 pages from 4 pages is news in Azure AI. So, Mia, this is your topic. Please start, and we end in 4 hours. No. So, what are your highlights, for example, in Azure AI? Do we have highlights, or what do you think?
Well, the highlight for me, actually, I see a lot of things updated, like Hans mentioned, like Lewis and bot framework. I think he knows that a lot. And I also want to highlight something that it's also interesting to me would be something like responsible ML. So, for example, we could see from our data set, is there any bias regarding like AI fairness? So like not only for different races, different sexual or different kind of category of people or items that you want to analysis, you could also see if your model behaves like is a fair model. So I think that's one thing is interesting to look at. And another one is interpret ML. It's kind of like you could explain how your model is being built up, and then you could more easily to explain your model to your client or your colleague. I think this one is also really interesting. And then the session was presented by Minsu. I think she's also a really good presenter. Like during the time, I really like her, how she present that. So maybe later on, you could also put the link. I could send you over and you could put in the speaker note. I quite recommend that session. And then also, I think there is something like teaching autonomous driving, like the system. I think it's a really like basic, like a robotic system. Just try to make a board as like a balance. So you could put like a ping pong or something like on there, and then you kind of keep the balance. So I think it's a really basic or hello world tutorial to let you know what should be made of robotic things to make it happen, so that you could control the robot, so that you could make things based on that. So I really like that session as well, because I don't know how to make a robotic application before, but after that I have more idea about it, and then I know why you want to put like the ping pong of it, why to make a balance, and then what's the difference for add different obstacle things on that, and etc. So for me, I found this few sections quite interesting. I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. That's really cool. I have one, Hans. I have also one. We are talking in some of our podcasts about quantum computing, about the future of computing, and maybe the future also, for me, it's also the future of AI. because of the faster, the bigger, better computer. Another principle. So at first quantum computing, and then you use the normal computing to get better results. And on Ignite, they announced the supercomputer.
Yeah.
One of the top 500 supercomputers in the world. And what was for me very interesting, not that they announced a supercomputer or built one of the top 5 supercomputers worldwide, they use it for OpenAI. And this is what was for me very, very interesting. So that Microsoft goes straightly the way to go on open source and OpenAI and development for AI. And this is what I see more and more. Microsoft is more and more open and said, okay, here's quantum computing. This is Q#, and Q# is also, I think, it's also open source, for example. And we have Microsoft Learn, so that you can learn to build great applications with OpenAI, for example. Yeah. So that was for me, okay. It's like a moment like they present the HoloLens. So they go straight, they go straight to the next steps. So for me, sometimes, and everyone knows on Build, they announce things like the new Windows Phone or like this, you remember, or the open platform that you can build apps for Windows Phone, and you convert apps on iOS and Android directly, or like this. And 2 years later, no one talk about this.
That's the same we have in the bots. So that's you can make it in 1 minute a bot. Yes. For a quick scenario, that's okay. But and we are on the straight way that I create my own bot with the knowledge. And if you want to see what they happened, if I got this, we were a little bit more deeper and ready for all the stuff. But now they give it a little bit of choice. And I want to change this one, and I will see, hopefully I will see that it is correctly. So do you see now my screen?
We see knowledge base.
So that's a knowledge base. That's the English knowledge base. I have in the first one we have 2 knowledge bases, and that means a lot. On the left side you see the questions, and on the right side several questions coming to one answer. Now you see it's well formatted. That was not there. Now with the build, we got a new version. And if I click here, you got a version in the old days, you see it like that. So you have to write this stuff here with the \n and all this stuff. This means these 2 stars means this word is also in bold, and I put it on that you see the different. That's all the stuff you can write. So here now you have the possibility to say, okay, I want to type this word and I want to do it in italic. And the first thing that we have done, that was this one. And I have to say, okay, that looks fine. For us is always, I have to have the question. You see a lot of question that fix OneDrive sync problems, and many questions you have came to the same answer. And the thing is, you see a picture, and then if you are ready, you have to say, okay, I click on that, and you see this picture is over. I build it again. This is the picture here, and it started here, and that's the long line you have to implement. That was the old days. Now it's better one. I say, oh, it's cool. And then you have to say test. And if you go to test, I can also give the number here in there. It goes a little bit quicker. And you see, hey, that looks good. And then I have to start and have to say, okay, I have to publish on the day or sometimes more, because several things will not work. You have different engines and all this stuff. Therefore, I have to say, okay, we want to publish the thing. And if you go to publish, you can see this bot is running in Teams. So that means you have an info about that. You have a chat area. You can chat with the bot in 2 different languages. We will have it more. And if we say, okay, sync problems, and hopefully it will work. We will see. And you see, that's the think problems he has to establish. The first thing is that's a problem about the engine. Microsoft knows about the bug. That's a 6:9 screen picture. But you see, this is a square. So that's the thing. It works in the mobile version perfectly. So, but this is another engine. But now you see here, this is the sentence here. And during the sentence, he's going and say, oh, that's a bug. He split off the complete work. German is a G. In the other one, if you see here, there is not so. And that was the first thing I have tested. And I say, no, nobody has tested it. But I have no chance only with this one to see what's going on. And that means, yes, you can have all the stuff and you can have although the other one. I don't want to talk to that. But that's a big one, is that you can have a quicker insertion of the stuff. And I say, yes, you have the things like fix, and I also try it from Word directly to implement. You have the links that now will work. That gives me, and you see that's about 103 answers about OneDrive, and it's still not the end. That gives me a chance to come quicker to the end, because it's, I think, 500% quicker, because normally it works. They still have problems with carriage return line feed. And we have to say to the people, hey, do a little bit work, but you can have it in Word and have all the stuff in there. And if you are working with paragraph or headings and all this stuff, it will work perfectly. Therefore, it's good. But yes, it speeds up, because Microsoft has seen, hey, we cannot have only text, and it's only not with bold or not with italic and not with pictures. Then the bot is boring and nobody will ask the bot. That was my thing about that.
So you're learning to create a bot that's more than a standard bot. That's more a standard Q&A bot. You see, you have more and more challenges, and you hope with quantum computing and all of the new things in AI, you will be help the other people to create faster a bot, or faster a better bot, or better communication, all of this.
In the bot development, we talk about content provider. So I'm a content provider. I have no about the idea behind the scene with these language settings and with all. I do not have to do it. Therefore, we have come to other MVPs that are development, and they are AI, because intelligence working with different languages is not so easy. But for me, it's a content. I'm writing the content, because I do not have Bluetooth inside my head and can say, okay, my next, that doesn't work. You have to build this stuff, and that's a lot of them. And then also in 2 different languages. So that means that's a lot of time. And if you see, hey, it's good enough, then you have to do that. But thinking, I have an idea about this development stuff from behind the scene, not in deep. But if you know that, you have to say, okay, talking about the onboarding bot. You are going and you come into the company. They say, here is your machine, and now you have the bot, and the first thing is where I get the dinner. And you have that. So sometimes you have to give him the plan. You are now here. You have to be there, and that must be from content providers, though. That's the same thing. Where is the other persons? Where are the other persons in my teams that are not only in one room, and so on? So that means other people has to be content. They have no idea about that. That's a facility management type to say, okay, you can have it in the cantina there and there, and you have to go from there. So that's intelligence, what we can have. Nobody, if you were there the first time, and if you have a great campus, it's not so easy to find again the way. And these people has to be there and have content, and it makes it easier if they have a system that they understand. So that is one. Back to you.
Back to the next reporter outside of the building in our new TV show. No, it's very very interesting if you have a look all of these news. Sometimes it happens that some of the smaller news you don't see. For example, there's a very small news. They announced static Azure web apps for static websites. So it's a little bit like the Azure storage websites 2.0, so the next version of it. And this is things, for example, for the community, also for our attendees of our podcast. You can develop and deploy a website in minutes. So this is one of the new announcements I also like. It's not a very big one, but it's also, I think, a very big one for the people outside. So for the normal people and the smaller ones. And moreover, there are a lot of announcements. For example, for Microsoft Teams, we talked about NDI, for example, NDI support. We talked about, or we can talk about the new Visual Studio implementation with the Studio Code implementation, Teams App Builder, and all of this. You know, I can talk a lot. For Microsoft 365 bookings and new Shift and Fluid framework and okay.
There's a new function called List.
Yeah. Also.
What is it? That's Office 365.
Yeah, that's Office 365. So on Build, we see more and more Office 365 announcements. That's what I like. That's what we like. Hans and I, we are Office MVP, so we like Office topics on Build, and it's Microsoft List, so you can create typical lists, and that's what I like. You can make templates for lists so that your users can choose, for example, here's a list to summarize or to collect information about data privacy, or here's a list to handle all of your, or not all, but a part of your customers, for example, or of the opportunities at your customers. And so it's evolution of lists in combination with developer, and that's what I see more and more. If you are working with Microsoft 365, if you are working with Windows or with Edge, or with Azure, mainly with Azure, you are a little bit of a developer every time. So
the formula is this a citizen, the developer?
Yeah, but it's more and more. You can use the default. That's fine, but you have, for example, 5 templates. But if you're using these templates, you become automatically to citizen developer because you want to do more. So the power user would be the citizen developer from tomorrow, or from tomorrow. And more, it's like a little bit in our last podcast, Mia has told us, more and more you will be a full-time developer because you decide to learn one of the languages and then start, okay, I want to do more. And that's a little bit what me happened in the last years, or what for my time happened. And I started and as a lawyer, and then I worked with the default. Then I started to develop my own Teams app or my own apps for Windows 8. And then more and more you see, okay, with a little bit of knowing what to do to search or to create a solution to have your target at the end of solution, it's more and more you have to understand some developer principles. For example, everyone is talking about Project Cortex, and Project Cortex is in public preview or a bigger private preview now. It's adds new development APIs, and you want to create automatically new content, new wikis, and want to search for more content and implementate the intelligent internet, for example, and there you need a little bit of development, and you have to understand the development basics. Or what do you think, Hans and Mia? Or at first, Mia?
For me, I think I would say the definition of a developer is kind of like changed by time to time. So especially like Microsoft Azure has a lot of like Power Apps right now. So you could kind of like build application with a lot of like Legos that with low code or no code. So let's say. So I think like now if you have the mindset of a developers, you know this tool with this tools, and then we put it together, it would be like a really awesome application that you are already a developer. You don't really need to like a code like a 3,000 lines of code, but once you have the mindset, like I know these tools might work in this scenario and what's the limitation for these tools, then I would say you are already a builder or a developer mindset people. Yeah.
And one question directly on this point. So we have more people from typical user to developer or switching, or that's the other part, or we have more people that said, okay, we are developer and we can do things and we can do more than the default, and we have more and more people, they don't want to develop, they only want to use.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we have a bigger gap. So that's two situations that can happen. I hope we get more and more developer, but I also see not the guys at Build. You have to go outside with COVID, with your face mask, and then you see more and more people that only want to use. So also it can be, I don't hope it will happen in the next 2 years, 3 years, that the gap will be bigger. So that we have only a part of people in this world, they can use the tools and can develop the tools and customize the tools, and only more people, they only use. And yeah, they about the other ones. Yeah. They have to pay a lot of money to live. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, it's like Lego. You have some Lego parts, and as a citizen developer, you can have this stuff together to put these Lego parts to an application, whatever the application is doing. So we will not have these big jumps in there and have a system that if it's ready, it's out of time because it takes 5 years. So we will have smaller things. But thinking that in companies, agencies, different companies, you have to work. So the people still have problems to came in stuff with Word, Excel, Outlook, and PowerPoint, and to see all these things that you have to say yes. Last week I have a call with Microsoft Research, and we talk about OneDrive. And that was very interesting because OneDrive, I only take the smallest one. Why do we have 2 different OneDrives? And why is Microsoft not writing the OneDrive for Business in there? And there's only the word OneDrive, and people do not know what is that. Is it a private? It's a personal, and it's a naming thing. So sometimes you have to be reduced. And that's a marketing, and has nothing to do with the technical stuff. So therefore, we have to see that the normal worker, although have a possibility to come with this speed of new functionality inside the programs. And we still have problems to see, hey, do we have in our tenant this or this function? We still do not know that. And we have to look for that. That's also a thing. If you come from one tenant to another tenant to our customers, then we see, hey, there are different ones. And that means, yes, that's the speed of all this deployment. And sometimes I do not know why is Microsoft doing these things so much and in this much speed. Yeah,
because of the developer. Because of the developer and the other companies like AWS, Google, Apple, they have the same speed, or they have sometimes more speed than Microsoft in some topics. So especially Google, for example, Google AI program is also very fast. Or Mir, if you have a look at the competitors.
Yeah, I think like for me, actually, I would say big companies, for example, as you mentioned, like a Google, Facebook, or Microsoft, they have different expertise. So for example, like in Microsoft, you could see they have really strong capabilities in language model, because Microsoft have like used Skype for translation, and then also have a lot of content, especially text. So you could see like Microsoft Azure has quite strong place for like language aspect topics. And then later on, for me, I would say it's mostly for Google. I think it's also a bit like for search engine, and then also the content of image as well. So that, for example, when I use like Bing search and Google image search, I found like Google has a bit more image data and more diverse data than Bing image has. So I think they have different aspects that they are good at. And then if we say about like AWS, then they also have some data for retailing. So it's like e-commerce aspect. They will think of like with retail a bit more. They will also think about e-commerce a bit more compared to Microsoft. So Microsoft also provide a lot of like service with like enterprise level. So I think they're kind of aiming with different target audience. So I think they are in different ways are also good companies and really good at their topics. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. So we only want to make a very short podcast.
It is a short podcast.
But then we made
then we made more and more, and we're talking because if we talk about Microsoft Build, we can talk a lot of more things. And for me, one of the other things that I'm really looking for is also the Edge browser. That's what we used every day. For example, you will get contextual search, and you get more opportunities with Microsoft Edge browser. For example, the Pinterest integration and the option to build your own extensions for the browser. So this is one of the other questions and interesting things. What do you think for the future? Do we have OS system like Windows or Mac OS, or we will have only Microsoft Teams and a browser and some web apps and everything is
like
fine?
In the long run.
The long run? Okay.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
For Microsoft AI, you only use a small web app. All of the doing is in the backend, or it's you don't will make your AI models on your PC in the future. If we have quantum computing, you will give all of the work to a data center, or like today, you give it to a data center.
But there are still problems. And the problems is the language, the culture issues about quantum computer and AI. So the culture of the American, you still have the American culture in there. And that's not the Taiwan culture. We have spoken last month, I think. And that's not the German culture. And you have to see that must be a neutral culture. But the people are writing down what they are doing. And you see inside the code, not inside the line, that the culture is implemented. And they have to do it. If they open it, they have to say, okay, it's culture neutral. And that's not so easy to say because the people are American ones and Indian people and all this inside the company, and you will have this invite and that must be split off. Then you can have that and have also an open spare for that.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. Because, for example, if we publish a service for like all the companies around the world, then let's say maybe in America, you would say, would you like a cup of coffee or would you like a Coca-Cola, let's say. But in Asia, you might say, do you want a cup of tea? Then not everyone would do so in Germany, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's cultural differences, but that also happens when you're greeting people as the first users. So even it's the first sentence will make so much difference, especially when you think of like a really big application for your whole day work with you. So it must have a lot of things to do with that. Yeah.
Good.
So a very great last sentence.
I cannot say it better. It closes the session.
My paper is white. No more points. So I'm really happy. We will link also the book of news in the speaker notes. And the time is running, and in Germany we will say die Zeit verfliegt. The time is flying away, or time is flying like this. And so, I only can say thank you very, very much a second time, Mia, for this great podcast, for your recommendations, and also for your deeper look into the AI announcements and AI and Azure announcements too. And thank you very, very much. And also thank you, Hans, for your introduction and OBS and challenges about bots and all of this. And I don't want to repeat everything. We can make a next podcast. So we will see us, both or three.
Yes.
Mia, Hans, and some other girls and women. We will see in the next edition, I hope, in the next time. So I say thank you very much.
Thank you, Raphael. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hans. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
The MVP Coffee Party.